Well, I want to touch some more on the Synoptic Gospels as you're reading through your week's lesson, and I want to tail back on some of the things that Wegner and Van Hooser are trying to get to the core of the issues, particularly Wegner as he sets up his textbook. And I think there are some takeaway points for you and I to think about. There's a good many evidence that evangelicals strongly support a Markan priority, seeing about 76% difference between the other two gospel writers, namely Luke and Matthew. There's also, as you think about the entirety of the synoptic debate, that Matthew is considered the first writer of the Gospels. Some scholars date him as early as AD 50, and it's Mark and Luke who are taking Matthew's perspective and comments about the life of Christ into consideration as they're writing their piece of narrative. And so you have a large spectrum here concerning how the synoptics are put together and how information that is particularly unique to Luke might be at a range of about 35%. And then when people look at Matthew, they might see 20% uniquely identified as Matthew. And then looking at about 3% of the uniqueness for the Gospel of Mark. So again, you're going to look at the percentages and differences. I would say this, that central to the debate is that is not so much trying to do critical textual criticism as it relates to who came, who was the first gospel writer, and who's taken their information, but more on the theme, the direction, and how the writer set up their narrative. What are they trying to describe to the reader or to the audience? They're deeply concerned about the person of Jesus, and therefore you and I need to be deeply concerned as well. And then you take into account the Gospel of John, which is almost 80% difference in its totality, and that also causes individuals to think, like, well, why is John so different? And again, let me just put it out there: why are all three gospel writers and John so different from one another? And the emphasis is mainly exegetical, that they're writing to a different audience. They have a different purpose why they're writing, and they're trying to look at a window of time into the person of Jesus. And let me just add one more. I think the doctrine of inspiration is definitely important here, that God is using the human authors, using their writing personality, the way they write. Mark seems very quick in style, where Luke is very persistent and careful. And that's based on, Luke's occupation, and Mark, being more younger in his quality, seems to skip over details. And then you swing it to Luke's perspective about Jesus and what's going on in the life of the disciples, is very precise in the words that he uses. And then Matthew is overly Jewish and trying to give a more Hebraic perspective on the life and teachings of Jesus. And so those are just some things for you to think about. All of them look at the life of Christ at the end, considering his death as a climactic theme, and getting us ready for the redemption of God's people. So I hope that helps a little bit, and I hope Wegner is particularly helping you think through the synoptic debate. Where could you go? What could be some detrimental effects to the synoptic gospels? I think if you spend overly too much emphasis on looking at who came from where, you might discourage people in your churches. And so what you probably need to do is spend more on to whom are the writers of the Gospels? Who are they writing to? What are the themes that they're touching on? And what really is, the biblical theology that they're intending to give to the human reader? And if you land there, you'll walk away from all three accounts, and then adding John as the fourth account of the Gospel, with a wide angle lens and seeing the totality of God's revelation being disclosed to men as something special here. And and then seeing that Mark has a unique focus, Luke likewise, and Matthew have a unique focus on the person of Jesus and his disciples and the people of the time. And I've walked away blessed by thinking through that rather than getting into the higher criticism, lower criticism debate. Not that you don't need to study that. You do need to know it. You need to know some of the tensions there, why maybe there are similar verses and Matthew might leave out and Luke might leave out, but then Mark includes, and vice versa. Those are important aspects of synoptic debate. But I think as a student of the word, you're particularly looking at themes, development of the writing, and the direction that the narrative is going for your study. I hope that helps a little bit and gives you some encouragement.